Again, don't worry if you have any questions. I'm going to go through the whole handout, but if you have any questions, I will be reteaching this when I come back and answering any questions you might have. So, example 3. A company rents cars for $50 per day plus 15 cents per every single kilometer that's driven. Express the daily rental cost C as a function of the number of kilometers D traveled. So, our cost, right, is obviously going to be C, and this is going to be our dependent variable, versus D, our distance traveled, independent. Okay, so if this is my independent variable, that means that's going to be my x value. So I'm basically going to have, and it's actually given away to us over here in D, but our cost, which is, oops, sorry, that looks like a parentheses, it's supposed to be a C, D is equal to, and now I'm writing my price. So the flat fee is going to be $50, whether I just drive it to have a car in my driveway that looks pretty, or if I drive it 100 kilometers, I'm still paying $50 plus 0.15, because I have to write those 15 cents as a dollar, times the distance I drive, or the distances in kilometers. So that's our function. So this is part A. Then part B, determine the rental cost if you drive 472 kilometers in one day. And then C is determine how far you can drive in a day for $80. And then D, CD, is CD a function? Justify your answer. So I'll give you a minute. Well, you can take as long as you want to, of course. You just pause the video, and then once you've solved B, C, and D, unpause it, and I'll take up the solution with you. Okay, now that you've gotten a chance to work on it, B. Determine the rental cost if you drive 472 kilometers in one day. This is just telling me how far I drove, so it's asking me for my cost when I drive 472 kilometers. And that's just going to be equal to 50 plus 0.15 times the number of kilometers that I just drove right there. And I can't do this in my head, but if you can, all the more power to you. I'm going to plug it into my calculator. Don't think you can see it at this angle, but I'm just doing 472 times 0.15, which will give me a value of 70.8. And then I just have to add my $50 of, that's my flat fee no matter how much I drive it. So C of 472 is equal to $120.8. Now, because this is a word problem, remember a word problem requires a word answer, even if it's just one part of the question. So therefore, it will cost $120.80. Sorry, the dollar sign I have to cram in there. To drive 472 kilometers. It's a lot of driving for one day. Alright, so that was part B. Now, let's do part C. And determine how far you can drive in a day for $80. So now we're doing the opposite. Now it's saying, hey, this is my budget. What's the maximum amount of distance I can drive on this budget? So instead of getting the distance and calculating the cost, I'm getting the cost and I have to calculate the distance. So I'm just going to plug in my cost on my left side of my equation because that's where the cost goes. So I'm going to have 80 is equal to 50 plus 0.15 times our variable that we don't know, because the only value we don't know is how much distance I can drive. And now I'm just solving for it. I'm isolating the variable that's over here and finding out what it is. So I move the 50 over to the other side, so it becomes 80 minus 50 is equal to 0.15d. So I have 30 is equal to 0.15 times our distance. And now the way I would get rid of any number is just, if here it's multiplied, I just need to divide. to get rid of it, and then of course if I do it one side I have to do it on the other as well. So over here on my right side it cancels out and I'm just left with my D value. And now I'm grabbing my calculator and doing 30 divided by 0.15. And because I'm dividing by a decimal that's smaller than 1, my number is going to get bigger. So I got 200. That's my final answer. But again, it's still a word problem, so therefore I can drive 200 kilometers on a budget of, how much did we say it was? $80. Perfect. Let's do a little bubble around this answer too to separate it from D. And finally D, is CD a function? Justify your answer. Now you kind of have to just put yourself in the scenario of this situation, right? It is a word problem, so I try and make the word problems make sense, right? So if I'm renting a car and I'm paying whatever $50 as a flat fee plus 15 cents per kilometer, there's no way that I can get two different values, right? Because it has to be a function. If I drive a car 100 kilometers and I bring it back to whatever the company is and they say, oh hey, there's two different prices, you can, like, you have to pay this one or this one, I'm going to be really confused, right? Because I just pay $50 as the flat fee plus however much per kilometer. So there's no way I can get two different values for one amount of distance put in. So basically, because the price goes up by 15 cents per kilometer, there is no way, or there's no way, well yeah sure, there's no way I can drive any distance, whether this be a short distance or a very far distance, and have two different prices to play. Therefore, it is a function, right? Because it only has one output for every input that it's given. Okay. So, hopefully that makes sense. Oh, sorry, the word answer got cut off there a little bit, but I'll keep it here in frame so you can pause and copy. Now, take a few minutes, try example 4, because it says, if